My name is Lee Miller. I'm a cowboy boot maker. I make cowboy boots in Austin, Texas. And primarily what you see is boots made in a historical manner using old world craftsmanship. But we do listen to music on our iPhones. So I started out working in a repair shop at the age of 18, a local repair shop in Vermont, just learning how to take boots and shoes apart and fix them. But by the time I reached 20, I realized that I had done enough repair and I didn't want to make repair of footwear my calling. I wanted to learn how to actually make them. So the only place I could find to learn how to make them was to go to Oklahoma. So I left Vermont as a 20-year-old and went to Oklahoma and started learning how to make cowboy boots. So that's how I actually started learning how to make them. Once I got there, I just absolutely fell in love with cowboy boots, the culture, the people that wore them, everything. So all my dreams of hiking boots and dress shoes disappeared, and I completely was just enamored of cowboy boots, and that's all I wanted. That was my main love. What we do here is we try to make perfect boots. And like, for instance, this pair I'm working on today is about as perfect as we've ever done. And I don't work alone. I have people that help me. Charlotte is the one who did a lot of the work. So what you see here is her. But you try, as somebody who works with your hands, to do everything better the next day. And as long as that's your goal, I think you'll achieve it. When I meet a customer, we'll go ahead and we'll try to find out what it is that they want us to make them. And then after we kind of work through the design, I'll go ahead and I'll measure their feet. My wife, Carlin, will work with the customer to try and go ahead and get every little detail, what color stitching, what kind of toe, what kind of heel. After that, when it's time to make them, we have to set up the last. So the last is the form upon which the boots are made, and it represents their feet. And every pair of feet are different, so theoretically every pair of lasts will be different. And there's an old saying in making boots and shoes that the last shall be first, meaning we can't do anything without the last. So I'll spend about 2 days setting up a pair of lasts. I'm just very slow and very meticulous because I don't want to make a mistake. So if I do a good job on the last, everything from that point on should fall into place and be beautiful and perfect. After the last is done, the paper patterns are created to fit the last and their leg, and then to do the design work. And you do have to be an artist if you make cowboy boots, because they can be very artful. While they're not always fancy, you do have to have an eye for style, proportion, things like that. So I will do some of the work, Charlotte will do some of the work in terms of design. And then once the design is created, Charlotte will pick up that and go ahead and create the beautiful, what you see. So you've got my last, the paper patterns, the artwork, and then the actual cutting it out, sewing it. There's no computers in this. It's all by eye. It's the person who's doing it. If they're good, it all looks nice and neat and beautiful. So this boot that I'm holding, started out with the person's foot. The last was created, the paper patterns were drawn up, the beautiful tops were created. Now that what I'm doing is I'm going ahead and stretching it over the last, and it's wet, and temporarily tacking it into place and allowing it to dry before I further add certain characters to it. Like you can see on this one, this has a toe. So that's done after it's been allowed to dry. So here's a customer who wanted these buffalo nickels put in. So Charlotte learned how to do it, to solder them, and then we sewed it in place. And you can see this boot is relatively simple. It's made out of an oil tan bull hide with their logo on it. So boots don't have to be fancy,
Right.
and they can have any toe, any heel. It doesn't matter, and that's all dictated by the customer, and then we just do it. They say in fashion, what's popular on each coast is what drives the middle. So if boots are popular in New York, if they're popular in California or the West Coast, then we're busy. But it definitely is cyclical. Sometimes we're just making boots for people that live in Texas. Sometimes we're making boots for people that live in France. It is really, if boots are popular, which currently they're very popular, then there's going to be a high demand. So you're influenced by the things that are happening around you. My mother grew up on a farm. She wore cowboy boots. My older brothers were wearing cowboy boots because the popular music of the day, the counterculture, was embracing cowboy boots. So everybody was wearing cowboy boots. All the musicians that you admired, the music you were listening to on the radio, they were all wearing cowboy boots. So it really was just something you were permeated with. And at the same time, the thread going through me was that I wanted to be an artist. I was trying to learn how to be a sculptor, or trying to learn how to paint or to draw. And so I saw my path in art was going to be footwear. But the idea that I had was that I could do something better than what was out there. When I first started making boots, it was really just trying to learn and being exposed to other bootmakers. Now it's shifted to the fact that while I still am trying to learn, it's more perfecting what you know and passing along what you know. So that's how it's changed. So there definitely are younger people than me doing it now, and you sure want to make sure that you help them. So in the beginning, you were one of those young people, and you were hoping that the older guys wouldn't kick you out. Nowadays, that's changed, because I'm now one of the older ones. And if somebody needs your help, it's kind of your duty to help them. So Charlie, working for Charlie was like working for someone straight out of history. If you wanted to know how cowboy boots were made in 1920, all you had to do was ask him, and he could tell you because he was there. He had done it his whole life. Born in 1898 to a family of boot and shoemakers. I think Charlie was fourth or fifth, probably fourth generation. So Charlie lived and breathed history, and bootmaking is history. He saw that I was somebody who maybe would be somebody to invest in. And so I became his apprentice, his right-hand man, even though there were other people in the shop that were also good too. For some reason, Charlie just held me a little closer. So an amazing artist, somebody who never stopped learning. I was with him right up until when he died, at the age of 95. Charlie said, well, call him up, get him to, find him, give him a job. So for 4 months, they looked for me, and they finally found me because I didn't have a telephone. And they finally found me, and they offered me a job, and the pay was good. And I'd never been to Texas. I had no idea what it was like. I love the mountains of Utah, but the opportunity to work here I couldn't pass it up. So I left Utah, and where I was working, it was maybe 800 people. And so I left Utah, and I remember flying into Austin at night and seeing the entire city laid out beneath me and all the lights. And I said, I'll never, ever find my way around. Because I'd never lived anywhere where there was a lot of people. I'd always lived in small towns. At the time, Austin was 300,000. Now it's well over 1 million. In 1986, and at that point, he was ready to retire. My wife and I bought the shop. We kept the name the same, Texas Traditions. We just took Charlie's name off the sign because he was no longer making the boots. So now it's Texas Traditions, Handmade Boots, Lee Miller. But the shop has always been the kind of place where people would come and learn. And we continue to do that. So just as I learned how to make boots under Charlie's tutelage, Charlotte, who's working here, is the same thing. We've had many other people that have come here and worked. We had a guy from Japan who was here for 5 years, then he went back to Japan. We had a guy from Paris, France, who was here for 9 months. Now he's back in Paris, France. Well, what happens is when you work with people, you learn from them. I mean, yes, I am in theory the teacher, but no, I've learned from the very people that work here too. They're always showing you an idea that they had, and which is better than your own idea. What's inspiring me now is just the continually getting better at what I do. I'm working on writing a book. That's my current project. Eventually, what I'd like to do is just to teach. So at some point, I will step aside and just be a teacher. But I don't know when that's going to be. So the first thing is we've got so many pairs of boots to make. I've got to get those done. I can't try to be anything other than, a bootmaker currently. But I'm working on my book because I do feel like I don't want people who want to do this, I don't want them to struggle the way that I did to learn. I want there to be a path that they can literally go, oh, this is what he did. This is what he does. I want there to be a written record. Well, eventually, Charlie had Texas Traditions, and eventually Texas Traditions will be somebody other than me. So you never want what you do to end. You want somebody else to pick it up and to carry it on.